The Thal'Zir did not believe in ghosts. Not on their irradiated homeworld of glass and storms. Not in the endless corridors of their battle cruisers. And certainly not in the primitive green hell their scouts now descended into. Jungle was an alien concept to them. Lush, chaotic, a place where light was filtered into shadows and the ground exhaled moisture with the weight of furnace. It felt alive in a way that disturbed their sterile sense of order. Commander Carvox, standing 9 feet tall in his reflective exo-armor, peered out through the mist and vines with mild disgust. "This is the infestation we were sent to tame?" he asked, more to himself than his subordinates. Around him, a dozen Thal'Zir soldiers moved with mechanical grace, their armor adjusting to the terrain, skin sensors modulating color and texture. They blended with the dense foliage, more for show than necessity. No species capable of meaningful resistance remained on this backwater sphere. Their preliminary scans had shown signs of limited sentient activity. Tribal structures, static defense emplacements from an age long past, but nothing more. Humanity, it seemed, had already broken under the weight of its own arrogance. "This operation will be surgical," Carvox continued, addressing his unit. "We clear a perimeter, deploy the extraction rigs, and begin harvesting within 2 cycles. The indigenous resistance will be minimal." A chorus of clicks and hisses marked agreement. The Thal'Zir were bred for war, engineered apex predators with battlefield memories encoded into their cerebral tissue. They had conquered worlds cloaked in acid storms, cities suspended in anti-grav oceans, colonies that fought back with psionics and planetary-scale AI. Earth, by comparison, was a forgotten ruin of carbon and plant matter. Still, protocol demanded caution. They moved in a staggered formation through the jungle, scanning with multi-spectrum lenses. Vines wrapped around trees like constrictors, and strange bird calls echoed from above. The ground squelched under their feet. Beneath the canopy, visibility dropped to mere meters, and their scanners struggled to pierce the tangle. An hour into the sweep, they found the first evidence of prior human activity, a ring of sharpened wooden stakes protruding from the ground like primitive teeth, surrounding the blackened remains of a small camp. Canvas scraps, solar chargers, and rusted firearms lay scattered around a stone-lined fire pit. The items were weeks old, maybe months. One of the Thal'Zir snorted. "This is the enemy." It was Shraff, Carvox's lieutenant, whose voice carried the disdain of a scientist observing a failed experiment. "We are hunting tree-dwellers with kindling and stone. Even insects bite," Carvox replied, though without conviction. The air here was wrong. Too still. Too heavy. He cycled his filters again, adjusting for oxygen saturation. His instincts, those hardwired into his gene stack, stirred uneasily. He dismissed it. Paranoia was a human affliction. The first disappearance was subtle. One moment, Scout 6 was transmitting telemetry from 20 meters ahead. The next, silence. No impact sound. No weapon discharge. Just a sudden dead channel. Carvox halted the column. Scout 6 respond. He repeated the command across 3 channels. Nothing. A faint hissing rose from the foliage, a susurration carried by wind or creature or neither. Shraff scanned the undergrowth, targeting software overlaying the terrain in crimson outlines. "Nothing," he growled. "No life forms, no movement, no heat signatures." The silence pressed in. "Could be a malfunction," offered another. "Gear failure." "Unlikely," Carvox said. He was less than a cycle old. They advanced cautiously, weapons drawn, eyes roving. They reached Scout 6's last position and found nothing. No armor, no blood, not even a broken branch. Carvox knelt, gloved fingers brushing the dirt. It was disturbed, flattened, like something or someone had laid prone here for a long time. "Look at this," he murmured. Strath approached. "What are we seeing?" K.R. Vox highlighted the impression with a scanner. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, a shallow depression the length of a humanoid form, hidden beneath leaves and detritus. "A hiding place," K.R. Vox said. "For what?" Strath asked, voice sharpening. K.R. Vox didn't answer. He was remembering something now. A briefing dismissed as obsolete. A human practice long since discarded. Camouflage. Real camouflage. Not optical cloaks or active meshes, but fabric, paint mud. Disgusting. Inefficient. And in this environment, terrifyingly effective. A crack. Not loud. No louder than a snapping twig, but it cut through the jungle like a blade. "Down!" K.R. Vox barked. They dropped into crouches as a body pitched forward from the rear. Scout 10. A single, clean entry wound beneath the chin, armor still sealed. The shot had bypassed every sensor, every warning system. No sound, no flash. Just death. "Sniper," Strath growled. "Impossible," someone else hissed. "From where?" "There," K.R. Vox said, pointing into the dense green. But even as he said it, he knew he was wrong. That was the trick. The jungle shifted constantly, 1,000 moving parts disguising the one that mattered. Thermals up. Sweep the tree line. Scanners flicked on. False positives bloomed and faded. Branches glowed with residual heat from reptilian sunbathers. Birds fluttered like static. Nothing humanoid. Nothing steady. They reformed, tighter now. Every movement was slower, more deliberate. They advanced again, though the direction no longer mattered. The jungle had closed around them like a fist. An hour passed. Then two. No sign of the sniper. No more shots. But the silence was worse than the attack. It wrapped around them like a shroud. At dusk, a Thal'Zir scout tripped a wire. A small explosion, not enough to kill, but enough to maim. The scout screamed as shrapnel tore into exposed joints. The others circled, scanning for a follow-up shot. None came. K.R. Vox knelt beside the injured soldier. The trap was mechanical, primitive, constructed from broken alien components and salvaged wire. Impossible to detect. Ingenious. "Who would build such a thing?" he muttered. "Humans," Strath said. His tone had shifted, no longer mocking, now wary. K.R. Vox stood. "They're not fighting with weapons. They're fighting with the planet itself." Then came the sound, barely audible. A soft exhale. A breath. It might have been the wind. It might have been imagination. But Strath froze, and his weapon tracked a shadow. "Contact," he whispered. But there was nothing. Just leaves shifting, rain falling, a bird calling mournfully into the gloom. K.R. Vox's comm pinged. A signal. Local. Unauthorized. He accepted. A voice came through. Not alien. Not Thal'Zir. Human. "You shouldn't have come here." K.R. Vox's blood chilled. It wasn't the words. It was the voice. Calm. Slow. Absolute. The transmission cut. K.R. Vox looked around at his squad, their armor gleaming dully in the darkening light, their weapons suddenly heavy. He no longer felt like a commander in control of a mission. He felt like a participant in something older, a ritual, a hunt. But for the first time in his long, engineered life, K.R. Vox was beginning to realize he was not the hunter. The Thal'Zir unit moved deeper into the jungle, their steps calculated, their attention fixed. The forest seemed to close around them with every passing minute, the air thick with moisture and a subtle, creeping discomfort that neither their technology nor their training could dissipate. K.R. Vox led them through the oppressive heat, the sounds of wildlife strangely absent, save for the occasional rustle in the foliage. Something felt wrong, but he buried the feeling. There was no room for hesitation. Behind him, Shrath, the lieutenant, was growing increasingly impatient, his voice breaking the silence. "We should have found the sniper by now. This is a waste of time." K.R. Vox didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the surroundings, his mind replaying every detail of the last few hours. The sudden disappearance of Scout 6, followed by the impossible shot that killed Scout 10, both events defied logic. The sniper was too precise, too hidden. The lack of thermal signatures or any sign of advanced technology made the situation worse, not better. No enemy was this elusive. Not even the most cunning species the Thal'Zir had encountered in their centuries of conquest. A soft chirping broke the tension, followed by the sharp call of a distant bird. In the stillness, it almost sounded like an echo of something human. The wind picked up, swirling around the unit like a living thing, brushing against their armor and tugging at the vines overhead. Nothing about this planet seemed normal, and it was beginning to grate on Caravox's nerves. There was too much chaos in the natural world here, too much noise, too much life. The constant buzzing of insects, the random calls of unseen creatures, all mixed together in a dissonant symphony. "Stay sharp," K.R. Vox said, finally breaking his silence. "The predator is out there, and he's watching." As if on cue, a shot rang out, a crack of energy slicing through the air. Shrath's head snapped to the side as the bolt missed by mere inches, singeing his shoulder plate. He barely had time to react before the second shot hit. This time, a direct hit right in the chest. The armor absorbed the force, but the Thal'Zir soldier's body was thrown backward with a violent snap, and he collapsed in a heap on the ground. Shrath cursed loudly, his voice echoing through the trees. "That's it. We're not playing games anymore. Get the perimeter set up, now." K.R. Vox's heart raced, his focus sharpening. The sniper had shown itself at last, but K.R. Vox knew better than to think this was an opportunity. It was a trap. "Reposition. Form a loose circle around Shrath," K.R. Vox commanded. He began to move, his senses alive to every sound, every shift of air. "This is what he wants, to scatter us." But the words felt hollow, even to him. His mind flashed back to the transmission. The voice that had spoken with such cold certainty, the words cutting through the static like a blade. "You shouldn't have come here." Something about that voice gnawed at him, deeper than any tactical concern. It was not a mere warning. It was an invitation, a challenge. The Thal'Zir soldiers moved quickly, forming a loose perimeter around Shrath's body as they tried to assess the sniper's position. But there was nothing, no sign of movement, no heat signature. The jungle was as silent as a tomb. K.R. Vox's fingers tightened around the grip of his rifle as he surveyed the area, his eyes flicking from tree to tree, scanning for any sign of the invisible predator. The sniper was close. He could feel it, the oppressive air, the tension, the way his skin prickled as though someone was watching him from the shadows. "Keep your focus," K.R. Vox growled. "He's close. He's playing with us." Shrath's body was dragged out of the open, hidden behind the thick foliage that surrounded them. The other Thal'Zir remained on high alert, their weapons trained on every shadow. K.R. Vox could feel his own pulse rising with every passing second, the sense of being hunted growing more real with each beat of his heart. And then it happened again, a faint rustling in the leaves. It was so subtle that, if he hadn't been listening so carefully, K.R. Vox might have missed it. His eyes flicked toward the source, but it was gone in an instant. "Did anyone see that?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, but none of them had seen anything. K.R. Vox didn't need their answer. He had seen it, the slightest shift in the shadows. The sniper was toying with them. Another shot rang out, this one hitting the ground just to the left of KR Vox, kicking up dirt and debris. The force of the impact was enough to knock him off balance, but he regained his footing quickly, fury rising in him. "Enough games," he shouted, his voice thick with anger. "Expose yourself, coward." But there was only silence. The jungle seemed to swallow his words whole. No response. A low hum began to vibrate in KR Vox's helmet, a signal from the team's communication system. Someone was trying to reach him. He keyed into the channel, hearing nothing but static at first. Then the voice came again, unmistakable. "Cold. Human. You're in the wrong place," the voice said. "This jungle belongs to the ghosts." KR Vox's blood froze. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. There was no malice in the voice, only a quiet certainty. And something else, amusement, as if the sniper found their entire presence laughable. With a grunt of frustration, KR Vox motioned for his team to advance. But this time, they moved with greater caution, their eyes scanning the trees and foliage with frantic intensity. The sniper's presence hung heavy in the air, a shadow that loomed just out of sight. Each step they took felt like a misstep, each movement a trap waiting to be sprung. "We can't stay out here forever," Strath muttered, pain in his voice as he gripped his damaged armor. "We need to engage, or we're sitting ducks." KR Vox didn't answer. His mind raced, calculating their options. His troops were at a disadvantage. They were too exposed, too predictable. The sniper had the upper hand in this environment. The jungle was its ally. The human was not a soldier. He was a predator. KR Vox's fingers tightened around his rifle. This couldn't go on. Not like this. He motioned for the team to spread out again, this time in a tighter formation. The sniper would come for them again. He was sure of it. And this time, they would be ready. But as the Thal'Zir soldiers moved, KR Vox's thoughts twisted. They were not the hunters here. They were the hunted. The thought was a cold, bitter realization that gnawed at the edges of his mind. And then there was a sound, too close to ignore. A snap, a break in the underbrush. It was too late to react. KR Vox's pulse spiked, his body reacting faster than his mind could process. The sniper was already there, in the trees, out of sight, but closer than they realized. He felt it, a presence, just beyond the edge of his vision. This time, KR Vox was ready. He aimed, fired, and missed. The sniper didn't even flinch. The hunt was on. KR Vox's shot missed by mere inches. The sniper had already moved, already melted into the jungle's endless tapestry of shadow and green. The Thal'Zir commander's breath quickened, the realization creeping over him like the steady, undeniable advance of a predator. He could feel it now. The jungle had become a web, and he, along with the soldiers, were the flies caught in its threads. His mind screamed for action, for movement, but his body froze, instinct screaming at him to wait, to listen, to understand. The sound of another twig snapping came from behind him, and KR Vox spun, weapon raised. But once again, the jungle was empty, silent, the chaos of the environment seeming to swallow the moment. His soldiers stood alert, their armor gleaming in the faint light filtering through the canopy, their weapons raised high, yet none of them had a target. And then the voice came again, a low, mocking tone cutting through the haze. "Still hunting? Still playing your little game?" KR Vox's skin tingled at the voice's proximity, the calm confidence of it. So sure, so effortlessly mocking. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. This human, this ghost in the jungle, knew exactly how to unsettle him. KR Vox had been a commander for decades, had led countless campaigns, faced enemies far more formidable than this. And yet, here, on Earth's dying surface, he was being bested by a phantom, a mere human. Show yourself, K.R. Vox barked, his voice a snarl of frustration. A sharp sound, like the rustle of fabric, moved through the air, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't a response. It was just the jungle itself. The wind, the leaves, the dying hum of an ecosystem fighting its last battle. "We know you're there," Srath shouted from across the clearing, his voice tight with anger. "You can't hide forever." "Can I?" The voice responded again, but this time it was sharper, colder. "You think you're the ones who belong here." K.R. Vox tightened his grip on his rifle, feeling a cold rage build inside him. His body wanted to react, to lash out, but his mind kept him still. The sniper was too clever, too patient. He wasn't attacking. Not yet. It was like playing a game with a child. No, a wild animal. Taunting them, making them make the first move, ensuring they'd fail before they even understood the rules. "We don't belong here," K.R. Vox muttered to himself, his voice barely audible. His words felt like an admission, a realization he couldn't quite shake off. He looked at the rest of his unit. They were tense, every muscle coiled, waiting for the next attack. But this wasn't an ordinary ambush. This wasn't like anything they had encountered before. He could see the fear in their eyes now, the growing sense that the jungle itself was against them, not just the human. The Thal'Zir were warriors, but they were not used to being outclassed by something so primitive. Another crack. Another shot, this time not aimed at them, but at a nearby tree. It splintered under the impact, bark peeling off in jagged pieces. The shot wasn't meant to kill, not this time. It was a warning, a reminder. The sniper was playing with them. "Form up," K.R. Vox ordered, his voice snapping, forcing his soldiers back into line. There was no more room for mistakes. They needed to outmaneuver this human, cut off the advantage of the jungle. He had to force them into a corner, turn the tables. But where? The landscape stretched endlessly before him. The trees were too dense. The air was too thick. The sniper had the perfect vantage point. He could be anywhere. K.R. Vox knew the sniper was waiting for them to move, to make the first mistake. "Disperse," K.R. Vox commanded again, though his voice was a little less certain this time. "Funnel them into the open. I want them to come to us." The soldiers split up, moving in quick, precise steps, each one taking a different path through the jungle. The plan was simple: break the perimeter, draw the sniper's attention, force them to act. But K.R. Vox had the unsettling feeling that it wouldn't be enough. The human didn't need to act. They had already won. The unit moved carefully, like wolves tracking an unseen prey, yet the feeling of eyes upon them never left. Every noise, every creak of the branches, every gust of wind felt as though it were part of the sniper's hand. This wasn't a fight. This was a game of cat and mouse, and they were the mice. As they moved, K.R. Vox heard it, the faintest flicker of movement ahead, followed by the softest whistle. A rustle in the trees. Someone had moved. Not them, but the sniper. He was getting closer, positioning himself for the kill. K.R. Vox's body tensed, every fiber of his being screaming that something was wrong, that they were being hurted, but his hands were steady. His mind was clearer than ever before. This human was clever. No doubt about it. K.R. Vox raised his rifle again, scanning the treetops. This time, he wasn't searching for movement. He was searching for the silence, the unnatural absence of sound. He waited, breathing shallowly, as the jungle seemed to exhale around him. His ears strained, listening for any sign of the human's location. Every heartbeat felt like a drumbeat, each thud amplifying the feeling that the world around him was holding its breath. And then he saw it, a slight shimmer, a movement in the foliage. It wasn't much, just the briefest flicker, but it was enough. K.R. Vox raised his weapon and fired, the blast echoing through the jungle. But once again, the sniper was gone. His shot had missed, as always. But this time, KR Vox felt something shift, something break. The sniper was no longer just watching. He was hunting. Back! KR Vox shouted. Get back to the clearing. Now! But even as he barked the order, KR Vox knew it was too late. The trap had already been set. The sniper wasn't just stalking them anymore. He was leading them to their death. The first one went down without a sound. A Thal'Zir soldier, one of the newer recruits, collapsed without warning, his body crumpling to the jungle floor. KR Vox barely registered the movement. His mind was already on the next step, calculating, adapting, trying to find the sniper before he made another kill. Then another shot. This one was aimed at KR Vox himself. It tore through the air with terrifying speed, grazing his helmet and forcing him to duck. The blast splintered a tree to his right, the force of it knocking a nearby soldier off balance. KR Vox's vision swam, his body still crouched low, his heart thundering in his chest. He had been so close, so damn close. The voice came again, a whisper this time, soft, haunting. You shouldn't have come here. KR Vox didn't move. His mind raced, then stopped. The word struck him deep in his bones, unraveling something inside him. Something primal. He wasn't fighting a mere sniper. He was fighting the land itself, a force far older than any Thal'Zir or their weapons. The planet, Earth, was fighting back. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The sniper wasn't a soldier, nor was he a lone predator. He was a force of nature, a part of the jungle itself, a living extension of the land's last defense. The Thal'Zir were invaders, trespassers, and this sniper, this ghost, was the planet's answer. KR Vox's breath caught in his throat. He realized now that this was not a battle for survival, but for respect. Earth didn't want them here, and the sniper was just the first wave. Retreat, he finally said, his voice hoarse, but resolute. We are not welcome here. The words hung in the thick air like a death sentence. Retreat. The command felt wrong coming from KR Vox's mouth, but it was the only choice. He could feel it now, the weight of his failure settling over him like the oppressive humidity of the jungle. They weren't invaders here. Not anymore. Not after seeing the sniper, hearing the voice, feeling the power of the land itself pressing against them. The jungle had turned against them. Earth wasn't just a battlefield. It was a living entity, and the human, that elusive figure stalking them, was its defender. The realization hit KR Vox harder than any shot he had faced. The Thal'Zir were not just fighting for control of a planet. They were fighting against something far greater. They were trespassers, and Earth was expelling them with every breath of wind and crack of thunder. The human sniper was its hand, its arm, its weapon. KR Vox knew this was not just a loss of battle. This was the beginning of something much larger. He didn't have to see the way his soldiers moved in response to his command to know they were losing heart. They weren't trained for this kind of enemy, not this silent, unyielding force. They were trained to fight armies, to face overwhelming firepower, not to be stalked by a single entity with the jungle itself at his back. The fear was palpable, but even more than fear, KR Vox felt shame. A deep, gnawing shame that they had underestimated Earth's capacity to resist. Shraff, still nursing the wound from earlier, was the first to break rank, pulling himself up with a pained grunt and setting his eyes on KR Vox. We can't leave like this. We came here to conquer, to win. KR Vox locked eyes with him. The defiance in Shraff's gaze was familiar. He had seen it in the eyes of many soldiers before, but it was different now. Shraff wasn't just angry. He was scared. The same fear that had crept into KR Vox's own heart had taken root in his lieutenant. We don't leave, Shraff, KR Vox said, his voice rough, his own anger barely held in check. We were never supposed to win here. We are out of our depth. This is not a war we can fight with force. Not anymore. Srath took a step forward, his hand twitching near his rifle. You can't mean it. You can't honestly believe we're going to just leave? What about the fleet? What about the Empire? The fleet won't help us, K.R. Vox snapped, his chest tight as the weight of the words crushed him. The Empire won't help us. Earth has already won. His eyes drifted across the jungle, watching the dark trees shift around them as though alive. He could feel it now, the suffocating sense of inevitability. They had come to conquer, but they had underestimated the planet's resolve. And this sniper, this human, was the living proof that Earth would never bow to their empire. The jungle around them seemed to grow quieter, almost expectant. The sniper was still out there, somewhere, watching, waiting for the final moment. K.R. Vox could feel the tension building, could sense the human closing in once again. The Thal'Zir soldiers were scattered, their movements stiff, unwilling to follow the orders they had once obeyed without question. But this wasn't an enemy they could defeat in the same way they had defeated countless other species. This enemy was patient, silent, a shadow that could never be caught. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the silence, a faint, faraway sound that had no business being heard in the stillness of the jungle. The sniper had fired again, but not at them. This time, the shot tore through a tree, the massive trunk splintering like brittle bone. K.R. Vox's heart pounded in his chest as he instinctively ducked. The bullet missed them, but it wasn't a warning. It was a signal. The human was letting them know that they weren't just in the sniper's sights. They were in the jungle's sights. The voice on the wind returned, quieter, but no less menacing. You should leave while you still can. K.R. Vox's mind raced. He looked at his soldiers, saw their nervous glances, their fidgeting hands. They were on the brink of breaking, the walls of discipline crumbling under the weight of their fear. There was no unity in their ranks now, no sense of command, just a broken, scattered team of invaders, struggling to grasp the reality that they had lost. K.R. Vox's gaze hardened, and he turned to face the jungle once more. There was no going back. The jungle was alive with death, and they were its prey. The human sniper had already won, but there was still one final chance, one final opportunity to do what he had come here for, to show that the Thal'Zir would not be so easily cowed. He turned toward the rest of his unit, his voice strong despite the chaos in his chest. Fall back, he ordered, the word coming out like a death sentence. We won't fight the jungle. We'll fight the humans. We have to find a way to strike back. The fleet is coming, but we must survive until then. Srath looked at him, his expression one of disbelief. How, Commander? How do we survive this? K.R. Vox hesitated, knowing the answer wasn't something he could say aloud. He had no plan, no strategy to outsmart a single human and the deadly forces of the jungle. But he knew one thing for certain. They weren't leaving without a fight. They would retreat, yes, but they wouldn't abandon the planet completely. Earth had won this round, but they would not be allowed to think they had won forever. The jungle seemed to close in around them as they moved, the trees whispering like ghosts, the earth itself seeming to shift beneath their feet. Each step felt like it might be their last, but they moved anyway, pushing forward into the unknown. Every instinct in K.R. Vox's mind screamed to fight, to find the sniper, to destroy the threat before it destroyed them. But he also knew it would never be enough. The human would always be one step ahead. Earth had the upper hand here. The planet was in control. As they trekked back toward their landing site, K.R. Vox could hear the softest sound, barely perceptible beneath the wind. The human's voice once again, this time more distant, yet no less unsettling. You'll never truly leave, the voice whispered, just loud enough to reach his ears. This is Earth's fight, not yours. K.R. Vox's steps faltered. The voice was clear now, and it carried with it a promise that sent a shiver down his spine. He didn't know how, but the sniper knew the truth. The Thal'Zir would never leave Earth. Not completely. Not after all they had seen. The jungle had claimed this battle, but Vox knew that Earth's victory would be short-lived. The Empire would not forget. The hunt would continue. But for now, they had lost. And Vox could not help but wonder if this had been the sniper's plan all along. Not just to repel the invaders, but to leave them with the indelible mark of failure, a seed of doubt planted in their minds that would never be eradicated. As the last of his soldiers reached the clearing, Vox paused for a moment, looking back into the depths of the jungle, his mind heavy with the weight of the truth. The fight for Earth wasn't over. It had just begun, and in the end, it would not be the Thal'Zir who decided the fate of this planet. It would be the ghosts of the jungle, and the sniper, the last survivor,